Nimekumbuka wakati mmoja nilikuja katika kijiji hii miaka 2.5 hivi iliyopita. Tulikuwa tumempoteza hapa Maho, tulikuwa tumempoteza MCA wetu aliyekuwa anaitwa Sagurani. Tukaja pale na tukawa na matatizo makubwa sana. Nikakuta pale county commissioner amefika, komanda wa polisi amefika, wamevunja hema, wamefanya mambo mengi pale, na ndio mjue kuna Mungu. Leo wale county commissioner, askari wale wengi ndio wako wanatushughulikia hapa. Si Mungu ni waajabu jamani? Mungu ni waajabu, si waajabu? Na nakumbuka wakati huo nilisema pale ya kwamba nilisema kwa Kiingereza, then I said I am a man on a mission. I don't have the luxury to retreat or to surrender, because we must change this country. I want to repeat those words today again. In Maho, the same place I say those words. I have a great dream for Kenya. A big vision for our nation. And by God's grace, we are going to transform this nation. Already, there are signs of transformation in Kenya.
Members of the public know that the government intends to vaccinate the 21 million livestock or cattle and about 50 million sheep and goats come January. That's our plan. Why do we do that? And it has been elaborated before, is that we would like to have a common approach as a country to the diseases, especially foot and mouth, and another one for sheep and goat called PPR. Because what has been happening in the past is that counties, because of the outbreaks, there is an outbreak in one county, they vaccinate, but the next county doesn't vaccinate. So, and there is a lot of movement with cattle and the livestock. So it becomes a waste of resources because one county vaccinates, the other one doesn't vaccinate. So it needs a coordinated approach, so that we are able to, for instance, the foot and mouth, to make sure that it is eradicated or it comes to a minimum. Because some of these diseases, for instance, the foot and mouth, restrict us from trading with even animals in export markets. If you are not declared foot and mouth or disease-free zone, then some markets are not available for you, especially European Union and others. So we would like to have a common approach, make sure that even our animals are safe, that the animals, the public is also secured, that the meats and the livestock products are also safe. So there is no ulterior motive, and I would like to urge the members of the public that come January, let us engage and have the livestock vaccinated or in a coordinated manner. The other aspect I would like to say is that the vaccines we are using are procured and 100% will be made in Kenya, and they have been made in Kenya since the last 12 years. The Kenya Veterinary Vaccination Production Institute, Kevabapi, which is based in industrial areas and in Kabet and in Remu, have been producing these vaccines for the last, I think, 15 years. And we have been selling even to our regional countries like Uganda, about 13 countries in Africa, and even in UAE and others. So these are safe vaccines which have been tested and tried. They are being used by other countries. They have been used in Kenya. The vaccinations the counties have been doing is based on these vaccines. So it is not something we are trying to get from outside to come and get into our animals. And we have the managing director, the CEO of Kevabapi here. he can give more information on what they have been doing. Like now, currently, I know Uganda has ordered about 3 million doses of the same, which they are using in their country. So it's not something which we are told that we are getting from another country. It is what we have been using here. And I know there has been concerns, and we will engage the stakeholders so that wherever they are concerned, those concerns, we will be able to deal with them and make sure that everybody is on board. We like to ask for calmness. Where there are any issues, let us deal with them and forge a common front forward with the vaccination.
Welcome to Fireside, the home of politics, policy, and polity. Tonight we are very lucky to have some of the brightest political minds in Kenya. We have Mr. Noordean Khagai. He's an advocate of the High Courts, and he's got another complicated initial, CPM. What does CPM actually mean?
Certified Professional Mediator.
What does that mean in normal English?
It means that I help in ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. You know, we have now at the court judiciary, there's something called court annex mediation. So matters can be held there. You can determine them, and you finish. Two parties can agree, and we come up with a consent that is used as law, and that is how you solve this dispute. The beauty about it is it's fast, it's less time consuming, it's less expensive, and the intention of mediation is to leave the parties at an amicable situation. Najua mkienda kotini, most of the time you end up as enemies, even if I win or you lose. But mediation, the best is to maintain the relationship. That is the best thing about mediation, and it's fast, actually.
Yeah. Now, talking about the judiciary, in the last couple of days, there's been altercations between what is referred to as the senior members of the bar, so senior lawyers, and the Chief Justice claims that there's a cartel of lawyers that want to run a reputation through the mud. She even speaks of technology-based gender violence or cyberbullying. But then there's another group of lawyers who said, wait a minute, Madam Chief Justice, there is a rot in the judiciary. And a few days ago, the Association of Judges and Magistrates came out and called former presidents of LSK. They said that you know how to address this issue. As a young upcoming lawyer, what do you make of these altercations?
First and foremost, it is true that we do have issues in judiciary. I don't think there's any arm of government that doesn't have issues. Judiciary is not special at the end of the day. But what is interesting is that both sides have claim or allegedly have that on each other. So the most important thing is that if you claim, like CJ is saying that, oh, there's a cartel, put that on the table. On the other hand, Ahmed has said he will not table the same unless she is part and parcel of the investigation. Now, if that is the case, then I believe the judiciary needs to have a say. So if they have anything on her and she has anything on the quote-unquote cartel she claims, I don't know which cartel that is, I believe both of them should table whatever they have on the table. And at the end of the day, the GSCs there will see whatever is there. If it merits, well and good. Whoever is found to be culpable will face the music. If there is indeed a cartel of lawyers, we have the Law Society of Kenya, we have the Disciplinary Committee, the Ethics Committee, which will also look into such issues. You know, if today you have a lawyer and let's say you're buying a parcel of land or you're selling, and your money comes in and they squander your money, you can take them to the Disciplinary Committee. Most people don't know that, by the way. So you take the Disciplinary Committee and you have like an entire case. And if they are found to be culpable, it is as worse as them losing their admission. Now, ile masomo walisoma becomes irrelevant. So it's as serious as that. So if she feels there's a cartel, she knows what to do. If they feel that she's part of the rot, as they claim, then table and we move forward. We don't want this situation where we had during Uhuru's time where he failed to swear in the judges, saying that he has something on them without tabling what he had on them. And the worst thing is that they went through a vetting. If you have something on them, so you table during the vetting, because the age is part and parcel of the JSC. So that was what people were questioning. So right now, it remains to be, for the common man, noise, because none of them has tabled whatever they claim. So I believe, yes, we do have issues in the judiciary, and it would be better if we solve them. But at the end of the day, you know, egos are also part and parcel of our practice. So they must collide sometimes.
There must be massages.
Yes.
Before we introduce our next panelist, a few minutes ago you spoke about the state of Nairobi roads, and you said that we no longer have potholes.
Hey.
What is happening?
Yeah, we don't have potholes. These days Nairobi roads have dimples. So you guys elected a dimples. So you have dimples. What do you mean? See, Nairobi is working.
What do you mean by dimples for our external audience?
Those dimples are those things on the road, those big things that ruin your tires and your rims. See, guys voted for dimples. They didn't vote for anything that made sense. And that is this what you get. We are told Nairobi is working. The only thing that works is the festivals we see at Uhuru Park, which he closes and opens at will. Now, there was a rumor that they want to commercialize that place. He came out saying that is not the case. You know, we've never gotten it right from 2013. The governors we've had in Nairobi, that's a sad reality. From Kidero to Mike Sonko, and then halftime, Kananu came in to finish 90 minutes. Then we had Badi as well, who was helping Kananu, and now Sakaja. So I think Nairobians really need to rethink how you elect. You know, it's so sad that Nairobi people claim to be the elite or the ones who know it all, but you always elect the worst of worst, because if we were to judge the workmanship of anyone who comes into office, then we have a problem.
Wait a minute, Noordean, are you a registered voter?
Yeah.
So are you running for governor Nairobi?
No, I'm not.
So are you complaining?
Because I'm a voter and because I live in Nairobi. And we pay taxes.
Why can't you offer yourself?
And we pay tax. That's a good one. Think about it.
Now, as you think about it, we are happy to have Meshack Odede. He's a political commentator and he's a chairperson of VIO Society of Kenya. What is VIO?
Thank you. VIO Society is amalgamation, or I would say umbrella body of member organizations working in development through volunteering. Mm-hmm. This is organizations working with volunteers like Kenya Red Cross, United Nations Volunteers, VSO, and many other. We're about 50 organizations, both grassroots and national and international, working in the development agenda of this country through volunteering. So we work closely with the Ministry of Labor because that's where presidential order, the executive order, puts volunteering under social development, which is part of the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection.
Yeah, so, I know you follow international relations to a lot of detail. Yeah. And yesterday, on Friday, there was a debate at AUC. What did you make of it?
Wow, that was the biggest highlight for me for the week, because not only Kenya, but Africa, and by extension, many parts of the globe were watching the debate at the African Union headquarters. I think it could have been the first time this kind of debate was happening. We saw the time the other commission chair were being elected. We never saw such kind of, we never saw such kind of debate. So this makes it a big highlight. But now the highlight, Mokua, in Kenya is the chest pain that we saw on social media streets in Mount Kenya.
What do you mean by chest pain?
It brought a lot of chest pain in Mount Kenya when they say their candidate is Djibouti and they're not going to vote. That's the problem. The candidate from Djibouti is their candidate, but they are not going to vote. So I don't know how they wish to help their candidate, but I'm saying there's a lot of chest pain in Mount Kenya, because when you follow up, we interact with each other on social media spaces, and when you follow up why they think the Djibouti candidate is best suited, it's not on the basis of what was put on the table in terms of how somebody knows Africa better and what is ailing Africa and the solutions somebody is bringing on the table. They are simply taking you back to June and telling you that Honorable Raila Odinga betrayed us and betrayed Gen Zs. And so they do not want him to be chair of the African Union. And so it is just simple chest pain of what is in the past. And I don't know, Mokua, where Raila aliandikiana na people of Mount Kenya that they will choose a candidate during election. They will elect no matter what that candidate looks like. And then when the country is messed, Raila will be there to fix the country. I don't know which part of the law they agreed on around this, but it is sickening. And now it looks like the church in Mount Kenya are back again prophesying how Raila is going to fail. They are prophesying doom. The same church which brought to us William Ruto and pushed William Ruto deep through our throat, and we have accepted William Ruto. Now they are prophesying other things. And those churches were largely Mount Kenya churches. And I remember at some point the churches in Rift Valley, the side of William Ruto, were crying, saying, are we not also churches? When you are taking money to the other churches, why are we not looking like churches? Maybe they didn't have prophecies. So that's why I'm saying it's a very weird situation in Mount Kenya right now, because it seems like everybody and everyone is wrong as long as that person does not see anything wrong with William Ruto or Raila Odinga. And now that has been taken to the space of the AU debate. And so other countries are looking at us and thinking we are ridiculous. Why are you bringing your own issues back at home to the AU debate? Because the people of Nigeria have their own situation, which is like ours. The people of every country have got their own situation that is like ours. But when they are approaching the issues of Africa, many young people, like you said, I'm in the volunteer sector, and sometimes I see the issues that were being discussed at the African Union touches on us, because we have volunteers from other countries here. We have our volunteers who goes to other countries. An organization like, in my membership, an organization like VSO is working in 13 countries in Africa. UNV is in every country in Africa, and we have like 500 volunteers of the UN, and maybe 200 of them are international volunteers who are probably from other countries in Africa and are in Kenya. So when we watched the debate at the African Union and we want to see how somebody among the three candidates want to make the space better, we are talking about the open airspace. We are talking about connecting infrastructure for Africa. It is touching on what we are already doing. And I'm sure it is also touching on the businessmen and women of Africa. We are talking about visa, for example. I know some of our young people who could not get visa even to attend some of the Africa regional conferences we are having in our space. And you will find that every space has got some meeting, maybe in agriculture, education. Africa have got such, and you realize many people don't even get visa, and they are within Africa. So from Africa to Africa, you are denied visa. So those are the kind of things we are supposed to be measuring the candidates on. What is your solution to this? Not that you abandoned the Gen Zs. Gen Zs who in the first place said they were leaderless and they were partyless, and Raila Odinga was a party leader at that time. How could Raila abandon his party and go to a team which is partyless and defend a team who are leaderless, and he was our leader? How would we feel that Baba has abandoned us and went to a team who are leaderless? Baba has gone to be leaderless.
Maybe the Gen Z you said that are accusing Raila of errors of omission or commission.
Yes.
Maybe as the lawyers would indicate that are valid expectations.
Yes.
That wherever they go to the streets,
yeah,
in their mind, they knew that the man who is going to come to their support was going to be Mr. Raila Odinga.
Yes.
But moving on,
yeah,
in the last couple of days, it appears that President Ruto has lost his cool in public.
Yeah.
Because he says he's got a number of signature events, but there's a good part of the political elite as well as civil society who do not seem to understand what he's talking about. Do you think that when you are the symbol of national unity, you are the leader of Kenya, is it prudent for you to lose your cool in public? Because one recalls that for the longest time when President Jamhuri was in office, he hardly lost his cool in public. Actually, most of the time his face was emotionless. And for President Kibaki, I remember it's only once when he uttered unprintables. Yeah. But most of the time you wouldn't read his body language. What do you make of the fact that the President Ruto has lost his cool in public times above number?
I think personally, I've not been much of a William Ruto supporter from the beginning. I didn't even vote him. But the people who voted William Ruto, for me, are the problem, because they are the ones who now push William and paint a picture of someone who was not supposed to be here in the first place, while we were here watching them telling us, this is the man who knows our pain. He's the man who went to school without shoes and those shenanigans. So one, we must accept, Mokua, that William Ruto is a human being. And the situation he has gone through maybe might not be comparable to many other presidents, especially the 4 that we have seen. Kenyatta took power. Not under 2 years was a situation like the one we saw William Ruto having. Uhuru took power, Kibaki the same way, but we didn't see under 2 years. You know what happened on the 25th of June is historic and will never be rubbed away no matter what. So I think if William Ruto will lose his cool on a few things, we must accept he is a human being at some point, and what has happened to him might not have happened the same way exactly to other presidents that we have seen. But that does not mean he's supposed to go on losing his cool. He's supposed to try his best, because they say, when you're given more privilege, you also have more responsibility than the others. So I can lose my cool, and he's not allowed to lose it ovio like I can, because he has more privilege, which I don't have. That means he will also have more accountability than I can. Yes.
Yeah. Noordean, I don't know whether you also...
But can I say something about Nairobi?
Yes.
On a light note, I think we blame women. They told us dimples were good. So women, please, next time, watch carefully. It's not just about dimples. I'm just talking about dimples.
Now, Noordean, without disclosing who you voted for, as Meshack has elaborately told us, what do you make the fact that is a national leader, a symbol of national unity? Is he expected to lose his cool because he's a human being? Because you see, every single word which comes out of his mouth is body language. One can venture to say that, in fact, that is a policy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see, the worst thing is that he gets angry when he's called a liar. And you see, he doesn't help himself, because every day there's a new lie. As you sit here today, the 2025 67th Grammy Awards will be held in LA. Mm-hmm. And he told us they have paid for it, and it's coming to Kenya. So if he's called a liar, does he still get angry? You see, there's a saying that says a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. It means your lies will already catch up with you. Today is December, actually. I've remembered something. There's another promise. In October, he said that they are cleaning Nairobi River. By December, the young men and women will be fishing in Nairobi River. Can we go over there even today to see if we can fish? So he doesn't help himself. Mm-hmm. And it's sad that he forgets that he's the father of the nation. Now, if you're called out for things that you have done, things that you have said, do you get angry?
But does failure to keep promises mean that you're in fact a liar? Yes,
here's the thing. It clearly means there's no intention to keep the promise. And just those populist things that are said during Moi's era, they can't be done right now. You see, the problem with this administration and most of these political leaders is that they were born and raised in the Kanu era. So ile Kanu chama ya mama, that political birth that they went through is what they think they can do it right now. You see, right now people are different. Today, if Parliament wants to discuss a bill, Kenyans have it on their phone. Yeah. Before you even vote, Kenyans have already given an opinion of that same bill. So you cannot now come and change and try to hoodwink Kenyans. The good thing is most Kenyans have gone to school right now. And those who haven't, they get the social media now is the new media, sadly, for those who don't know. Even Trump said social media is the new media. Thanks to that, he won against the legacy media. So you look at the situation, guys, during the demonstrations in June, the finance bill was being discussed via TikTok, live, via X. There are times we call as lawyers, told, we have a space, can you come and help us understand this bill? And you do it, and Kenyans live there knowing, by the ABCD, we don't want this. And that is what he fails to understand. And then there's this thing that they have as an administration. They want to do things by fire, by force. It's by fist. Like right now, he says, wale ambao hawana ngombe hawezi mwambia kitu. They are stupid.
But have you been to the airport?
Luckily, I have. Luckily for me, so I can be
so
with him.
Comment.
Yeah. So you see, when he says these things, sometimes I sit down and ask myself, when we're children, You see, the things he says, he trivializes concerns. For example, like the airport. And sad reality, when he's campaigning, alisema yeye ni rais wa wale wako chini, wale wajiwezi. Hao ndo waende airport. Na saizi sasa wale hustlers, mamboga, boda, all of a sudden they can no longer advise him. While he was doing town halls, seated with them, acting as one of them, signing agreements with them, they were knowledgeable enough. But right now that he's the president, and so happy that he has a sword that he showed us, forgot the constitution, he showed us a sword. Don't know who's attacking the country, showed us a sword. He forgets that he can also be advised. The sad reality is that it proves what people say, that he tells his advisors how to advise him. So that is the worst job you can have in this world. I would resign if I were them.
But Noordean, every president who gets sworn in is given the sword, is given the Bible, is given the constitution. Is there anything wrong in displaying it? That is number one. Number two, I suspect you would agree with several facts. That number one, the issues raised around the finance bill that Kenyans found unacceptable. In fact, the relevant parliamentary committee removed all those things. Like there was a taxation about circulation and the rest of those what were referred as controversial or contentious. So the bill that was in fact debated and the bill that was presented to the president had in fact taken care of all the concerns raised by Kenyans. But because of misinformation and disinformation, it was too late to make a U-turn.
The sad reality is that one, you asked something, sword and constitution. You see...
And the Bible.
And the Bible. Beautiful. The sad reality is that we are not governed by a sword. We're governed by the constitution. And he was more excited about the sword than the constitution. That's why he said, akona kisu. Remember? Nasia mkata nyama. So who is he talking to about? You are meant to protect our borders, not use the sword on us. What you're supposed to use as a president is the constitution, because even he is under the constitution. And that is why whenever he has these ridiculous bills that he ends up signing and turning into law, they end up in court. They are termed null and void. It reminds me of Uhuru and Raila, the null and void brothers. You remember? So he's now there. And sadly wants to bring Raila to join him, null and void, courtesy of the bread based. Moving away. So the sad reality is that the second question I ask you, aside from that, the finance bill. You see, as you rightfully say, this government one has a problem with communication. To date, they still have that campaign-ended communication style of doing things. And sometimes it's too aggressive. You see, right now you're in office. Uhuru is not there. The aggressive campaign mechanism you had where you were targeting quote-unquote dynasties who now you are in bed with, sad reality. That ended. You have a policy. Tell us about the policy. But this thing of it must be done, it will be done. You know nothing, you're idiots, you're stupid, or you're possessed. Now we are possessed. It's ridiculous, you know.
So you have issues with President Ruto having a cup of tea with President Kenyatta?
Funny thing, I have no issue, and I'm not even surprised. Let me tell you. It speaks of the hypocrisy in our political leaders. You see, back then Uhuru was
Is it leaders and voters or only leaders?
Wait, I'm going there. Back then, Uhuru was a bad man, wanted to kill his children, allegedly, was a dynasty, and he was for the hustlers, but now you can go see Uhuru. Let me even use a big example. When Zuma was president, EFF at the time, where Floyd Shivambu was a deputy president of EFF, they never allowed him to address them in parliament. When he came, they used to say we cannot be addressed by who? A corrupt man captured by the Guptas. Malema would start, Floyd would stand, and Lozi will finish. And it will become a ruckus, and they'll be chased out. There's a day they were fought by the orderlies. 2024, Floyd Shivambu decides, I am leaving EFF, I am joining Umkhonto Wesizwe, headed by Jacob Zuma, who during his term as deputy president claimed was allegedly led the Maracana massacre, allegedly was corrupt with the Guptas. Now he says Zuma is the one to lead them forward. And he's using the same Zuma now to fight EFF. What am I saying? Bring it back home. Uhuru was such a bad man. Now he's a good guy because apparently our president feels threatened. He has looked for Raila. He has looked for Uhuru now because if you look at it, it's more or less 2027, trying to solidify his strength and also, I think, legitimacy. He's still looking for legitimacy 2 years after elections, which is very sad. So it's more or less about personal interest. That statement he wrote was never, the discussion was never about Kenyans. It was about how do I stay as president? How do your businesses as the Kenyatta family continue? He hasn't even told us whether they're now paying taxes, allegedly. Because when they took over, they were saying they're not paying taxes. He hasn't told us whether he still believes Uhuru was the one who's funding the Mandamanos Azimio. So you see the hypocrisy and the lies. And the sad reality, we are awake to the fact that these people, so long as their interests are aligned, they will never fight. It's never personal, it's just business.
So these political dynamics you're talking about, politicians, you've given a South African example. Is it limited to Africa or it's a global thing? It's
a global thing at the end of the day. You see, the worst reality is that voters need to understand that when you vote for your interest. Two people come to seek your votes. Ask yourself, when you go into office, what do I gain? Because if you vote for that person's interest, of course, when they get there, they'll make a U-turn, and it brings him back to what he's saying. There are those who think Raila always should be on the streets for them. In playing the devil's advocate, I'll say this. You remember when they went to the streets, the Gen Zs, there's a video that went viral. Agwamba wewe baki home, wacha sisi raundi tukurepresent watoto wako. He made a statement after that. He supported them. So in them getting angry, you understand. They feel that, people were killed, people died, and that has not been interrogated enough as to put those who killed the capability of this to be taken into account. Now they feel that he has come on board. They feel that the enemy that they had, who was weak at the time, he has emboldened him. And that is why, if you look at the likes of Joho, who can now look us in the eye and talk the way they're talking because they're experts. I don't know experts in what. Mombasa would differ 10 years of him, who can now look us in the eye and talk the way they're talking. They have emboldened him. And that is why you'd understand why these young people are angry. They feel like this person, we blame a lot of things on this person. Like, the deaths that happened in June. And there's no accountability on that. The person who was the cabinet secretary for Interior at the time is now the deputy president. And he says, when he took over the deputy president office, he said, by the way, issues of June have left to the office of the Minister of Interior. Whoever takes up will answer. It doesn't work that way. That is why, in plain the devil's advocate, I understand where they're coming from.
But Meshack, Noordean seems to have unfinished business with Mr. Raila Odinga.
Yeah, Mokua, there is one thing. Why would you want Raila and maybe his right-hand men like
experts,
Joho and the rest to keep doing this work when even, for example, Noordean, the lady journalist who was shot in Nakuru, I saw her thanking Kindiki. So why should Raila have war with Kindiki? And Raila was not shot.
What do you mean that she thanked Kindiki?
During the award he was given, there was, I think you will go into the social media and you will see. During the award she was given.
The journalism awards.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And Kindiki, I think, had a meeting with them. Mm-hmm. And I thank the deputy president. So I was like, why would someone want Raila to have serious war with Kindiki? And Winnie Odinga was not shot, or Rosemary Odinga was not shot. The lady who was shot is thanking Kindiki, who is now deputy president and was. So that's the reality. But coming to your words, it is true. The politicians will change. Even you and I, if we go to parliament, we will see that change happening. We know it will change. Kwanza yours will be bigger.
That's what they will say.
No. But this is what should happen. I think the expectation of the voters is too high on politicians. They place politicians probably where they place their priests and pastors. And the Pope, and it is wrong. So the political class, like you say, will look at their interest and how to retain power and maintain. If you were William Ruto today, wouldn't you want to mend fences with Uhuru? Would you want to go on campaigning against Uhuru? Because when you do, the same you sitting here will say, it is beyond campaign time, Mr. President.
Yeah, statesmanship.
We are now here and you now need to work. Forget about Uhuru. Now he has forgotten about Uhuru. He is mending the fences. And again, he is now with Uhuru.
Company.
So it is a very delicate balancing. And you would not want Raila to be on the street throughout the 5 years. You would want, if there is anything you can discuss with them, you would do. So I believe anybody in the seat where William Ruto is would want to reach out as much as possible. The problem is he is not reaching out to the young people who makes the majority of the country, and he is not, he pretended during the June that he is willing to listen, and he attended 2 Twitter space, which was largely controlled from his end, and it ended like that. So I wish that as much as he is reaching out to Uhuru, which I don't have a problem with, he would also continue and say, I still want to discuss with young people more. Especially when there is no controversy right now, I would wish him to be on that Twitter space now than when he was in that Twitter space. Because when he was, it was simply to quell the fire. But now it would be to make things work. That was just to quell the fire and making nothing work. It was like reducing us or returning the country to neutral. But if he was to call for that Twitter space now, it would be to make things work. Like, how do we now progress? You had gone to parliament, you had shown your anger, you had shown a lot of things that you don't like, and you're the majority that I am leading in this country. So how do you expect us to move forward now?
Now, Meshack,
yeah?
President Ruto says he's a man on a mission.
Yes.
And he has a great dream for Kenya.
Yes.
And he pronounced himself during Jamhuri Day.
Yes.
He gave a very elaborate speech.
Yeah.
And he says that there are a number of signature events that are a huge success.
Yes.
For instance, when you are talking about inflation, when you're talking about interest rates, the cost of unga.
Yeah.
But he says the Kenyan environment has been poisoned by misinformation and disinformation. Then on the other hand, Kalonzo Musyoka says, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The president presented alternative facts. In fact, he's not working for the nation. What do you make of those 2 statements?
This is my personal opinion. Yes, President William Ruto says he is a man on a mission and he has a vision for the country. The problem is how many people in this country believe in that vision. So if I have a mission and a vision for a company like this, the first thing I should work on is getting the employees of this company to buy in my vision and believe that this vision is good for all of us. So the problem is William Ruto, as the president of the Republic of Kenya, has a mission and has a vision, but 3/4 of the country may not be.
How did you get to the 3/4?
Because Gen Z makes, and the younger one, maybe the alphas, the Gen Zs and all that. And believe me, a huge number of millennials who also joined Gen Zs around that time. So if you look at the population demographic of a country like Kenya, Africa, the median age for Africa is around 19. And Kenya is just part of the statistics. So when you look at our population with those who are below 35, you will definitely find maybe close to that 3/4, if not exactly 3/4. So I'm just trying to say bigger majority may not be in the boat where we talk about the vision for the country. So yes, William may have a vision, may be a man in a mission, but I think he needs to first come back and carry everyone into that vision and mission. But communication, like you mentioned, whenever you go, this is not the president alone, even county governments have got this problem of communication. And I think, in my opinion, it is because we carry along the people who developed our campaign messaging into the office. And I think it is a wrong thing for anyone to do. If Noordean does communication messaging for me in the campaign, he is not the right man to do policy communication when I'm in the office. He will be tempted all through to continue with the campaign because that is what his mind is used to. So I think it is the place where we are with every other leader, including governors in the county. He hires Meshack to do campaign messaging, and my brain is organized to do campaign messaging. So when you are in the office, I am still tempted to just do campaign messaging when I am supposed to do breakdown policy. And that is why when we come to vaccination and all that, it might be a great thing, it might be a very good thing, but we are projecting it out as a campaign messaging, like the president wants to score something with this.
Yeah, but before you go to campaign messaging, because that is a substantial subjective topic on its own.
Yes.
Noordean, what did you make of the president's speech and the reaction by Kalonzo Musyoka?
Just before, 1 minute before Noordean comes in, I heard Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka telling us this. I do not want to make judgment out of nothing, because Honorable Kalonzo and the team should also organize themselves as the alternative government and give us what they know as the facts. It is not enough for me, Mokua, to just tell me what the president said is a lie. You need to also bring the truth. Like, what is the truth? And what are the sources of your truth? So I can compare, because the president may be using whatever numbers he has, whether it is from ministries, whether it is from KNBS or central bank. That's okay. It is in his place. But what numbers or alternative facts is Kalonzo and the team around the opposition giving us to be the judge now and compare this is the truth and this is not? I think that is where they fall short. And if Kalonzo wants to gain more popularity, he will need to do more than he's doing right now. Why do I say, sir? When Raila was in that position where he is, Raila would give more than just saying the government is lying. If you remember, whenever Raila would call a press conference on something, he would read and have more of statistics and source of information from the same government or the institutions within government, and people would believe this is, if when Raila pointed out something, there is corruption in this particular place, he would give you more than just saying there is corruption and leaving the press. So I think Mheshimiwa Kalonzo needs to up the game and be a good alternative, even to Raila, because Raila right now is not going to be our opposition leader. Azimio literally is led by Kalonzo right now. So Kalonzo needs to go to the press. I think the people who push him to the press every day are not doing justice. He's supposed to appear on the press to a level where we all psyched up and want to hear Kalonzo is going to speak. But if he is going to appear at Kalonzo Musyoka Center every evening or every lunch hour every week, and he's just saying the same thing, even the press will get bored. Even the Gen Zs he's supporting will get bored. So he needs to do more than just saying. If the president says we are good, the inflation rate is here, he needs to back up with some evidence. But then when Kalonzo tells us that is not true, he also needs to back up with a little evidence of what is true. Because what we are seeing is one speaking and one denying, and that is not enough for Kenya.
Now, Meshack, in applied politics, they say that for you to become a political leader, for you to win an election, you must have the killer instinct.
Yes.
That you must demonstrate appetite for leadership.
Yes.
In your view, has Kalonzo demonstrated appetite to be the president of Kenya?
I would say yes and no.
It has to be either way. Now you are sitting on the fence like President Kibaki.
I'm talking about Kalonzo, so it has to be a yes and no.
Okay. Are you talking about a watermelon?
that is your word. I'm saying yes and no because the period he has decided to stay on board since the time he left power with Kibaki is a good indicator that he needs to be. But what he's doing to get him there does not indicate as much. So that's why I'm saying there is a yes and no, in this question. Yes.
Okay, Noordean.
I think he answered in that today. He was doing shopping at Naivas. So maybe he's looking for the facts.
Yes.
Well,
actually, you went to establish the cost of hunger.
Yeah. Well, regarding the president's speech, there's not much to say. It's just the same speech.
Yeah.
There's nothing new, and this speech is never meant for us. It's meant for the Western powers, where he paints a rosy picture of Kenyans, and then he tells them, by the way, what they're saying is false. So it's fake news. That's why he talks about fake news. Say that is fake news that is there. It's not real. It's not our speech. And that is why whenever you know he's going to talk, I've crammed his speech. I know affordable housing. The things he'll say, they are just the same things. With flowers, yani. But just the same thing. It's the same speech that just pins. Either paragraph 1 comes at 1, or it comes at 4 or 5, or at the tail end as conclusion. But once he's done, after reading that speech for the Western powers, whatever now he says, where he'll call you either stupid or demons possessed, that is yours.
You choose where you
that
belong.
is the speech for the people. But you see, at the end of the day, they forget. When you listen to those in office, they say, oh, whenever you paint, the government has done ABCD, which is wrong. Why don't you say what they've done right? Now you see, that's a very pedestrian conversation to have with them. Because why are we praising a fish for swimming? Why do you want us to clap for you for doing your jobs? You're being paid. We elected you because you said you'll do ABC. So why do you want us to clap for you? People will raise issues on what they feel they don't want. And that is the part and parcel of the problem. Because this government is tone deaf. They don't want to hear anything that you are questioning. Like, you see, it's like back to the ages of, bora fulani amesoma. I said fulani, I didn't mention. Fulani amesoma iko sawa ipite. We can't go back to that era.
I mean, you're a lawyer. You fear mentioning names.
No, I'm just saying, just mischievous. But
you fear Odede.
No. You see. He says he's on a mission.
Yes.
But you can't be on a mission to finish us and then we clap for you. When people raise concerns, nobody hates their own country. Nobody wants to see a government fail. Everybody wants to see a government succeed. But when you ask questions, it doesn't mean you're anti-government. You're just pro-good governance. Because right now, when people ask questions as to the cost of living, people ask questions as to SHA, the first thing you'll be told, tumepunguza bei ya mahindi, bei ya unga. Boss, let me ask you a question. Will you pay your healthcare with bei ya unga? Will you pay school fees with bei ya unga? It doesn't work that way. Don't reduce everything to all fertilizer, which actually farmers today have not been compensated. We had the issue of Linturi. Linturi is not in office, so we don't know who will compensate them. That issue just went. So when people raise questions, they are important questions that people want. It's good that we are now a country where people want to be part and parcel of the decision making of this country. Our friend from Tanzania, Tundu Lissu, told the people from Tanzania, the young people allegedly, kazi yenyu ni kusikiza tu Diamond, Kiki, na acting. Nobody cares about how the country is moving forward. Now, if that means they reference us, they look at us as a country that these people, the young people in this country or the people of Kenya are focused on how they want the country to go. And that's when he raised the issue of Raila and AU. This is not the first time they've had a debate. This is not the first time we've had someone wants to fill that position. But because Kenyans have taken keen interest in that, it shows you the importance of Kenyans and the importance of social media. Joe was on record saying that when they went to the US, they were trying to get people to come and invest. They're being shot, but see Kenya inachomeka. That tells you how Kenyans are proactive. Yes, sometimes news is fake that has been spread. Sometimes we kill people who are still alive. Sometimes we spread fake news, which is not right. But also when real things are happening and people question like the Adani thing. Remember Musalia Mudavadi denied it 3 times before he accepted in parliament. He said it's not happening. Until people say, oh, by the way, hold our beer. Here is a document. Then they're like, where they get it from? Remember the officers you serve. They are young people who think differently from you.
But not talking about the Adani deal and the airports. There was no contract signed.
But now here's the thing. They denied that there's any negotiation. They denied nothing is happening until people came out with a contract.
Now talking about the president's speech, you say that his primary audience is the Western powers. But the Western powers have got their ambassadors and high commissioners in Nairobi. So are you suggesting that the ambassadors and high commissioners don't listen to anything that is happening in Kenya?
See, they follow. You know when a president is addressing any country, people follow. Even when Kibaki, when you say, I only have one wife, Rusi, everybody saw that thing around the world. When a president addresses an issue, it's a big thing. Like he says about Kalonzo, nobody anticipates. It's the same thing as Ruto. When president is talking, there's nothing important he'll say today. It's just the same things, flowery things, and more so if he's going to launch even a tap somewhere. He'll just say other rosy promises that actually don't make sense. So at the end of the day, this is what I'm telling you. If you listen to that speech, it's more or less, he's trying to show the world that Kenya is moving, Kenya come and invest, Kenya is okay. Whatever people from Kenya are saying is not true.
So Noordean, President Ruto has been in office for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you can give him credit for? Okay, as you touch your head, Meshack.
That's my answer. That is my answer.
Okay, there are 2 things I want to quickly rush on. I just remembered something about Nairobi. and the entire country on devolution, whether it will work or not. But I think Nairobi is the best example of a worst case. Nairobi will not work even if we remove Sakaja today and bring somebody else.
Like
because,
Noordean.
Yeah?
Like Noordean.
Even me. Because the quality of the MCAs we elect in Nairobi is way, way, way below what Nairobi needs to have. Nairobi have got quote-unquote thugs in the county assembly, and you want them to legislate.
You're exposing yourself to litigation, or you take the campus.
Yeah. You want them to legislate, you want them to oversight, and they don't have that capacity. 3/4 or half of that house are not people who have that capability. So even if you are the best governor, you still need to work with this assembly to give you the policy directions and things like that. It won't work. So the people of Nairobi themselves are supposed to begin by saying, come 2027, what type of MCA do I want to have in my ward? Who will legislate and will oversight thoroughly? It is a problem in the entire country, but Nairobi is worse because Nairobi is looking for a popular makanga to make MCA. And one thug goes to that house and gives inspiration to the rest. And next election, 30 of them are vying and 25 would get it. And when you rally yourself around the political parties and you want to be a governor, the young people who you call your boys, who opens the way for you during your campaign as a governor, are the ones ending up with the political party tickets, which are likely to end up in that house as the MCAs. And we know many of them in different political parties. So Nairobi needs an overhaul, not just the governor as an individual, but the people need to elect representatives as MCAs who can take Nairobi to another level. Coming back to the issue of president and the communication and the facts and the lies, I am not a professional or an economist as a profession, but this is what I would say as a Kenyan. I don't think it will work for us as a government and a country when we keep thinking that when people say or complain about economy, we reduce the price of this or the price of that. That's not economy I would even want to go to class to learn. The issue for me should be, do I have the money to buy whatever it is? Even if it is expensive and I have the money, what is the problem? Even if it is cheap and I don't have the money, the economy is still bad. So I think President William Ruto and the entire government of Kenya Kwanza don't need to keep working on reducing the prices of everything to make a political statement. Work on getting people to have the money. So even if bread is 100 shillings, but I have 2,000 just for bread, will I be complaining? I won't be complaining because I can afford it. But even if the bread tomorrow morning would be 20 shillings and I still don't have that 20 shillings, I would still complain, I'm hungry. The economy is not good, I'm hungry. So let's work on putting money in the pockets of Kenyans. And then we will forget about this, we have reduced unga, because we have reduced the entire economy conversation to unga. One unga that we started hearing from the beginning of this government, unga has been reduced. It was 250, it is now 100, it is now 80. But if I still don't have that 80, the difference is the same. So let's work towards getting Kenyans to have the money. The Kenyans who have some little money are complaining that we should switch. The government should take my part and I take the taxes. Yes. That's where we are. So I think we need to really, really balance this economy thing by just making sure that Kenyans have a way of putting money in their pocket. And even if, because the truth is, Mokua, there is no day we will return bread to 20 shillings. It will never get there, even if I am the president tomorrow or anybody else. And everything just needs to keep, because we are part of the globe and things are rising. Yeah, everything should just keep rising. But as they do, we should have more money to afford them. Because even the days when we are saying it was, The problem is some people still didn't have money. So there are people in that era who complained. The difference is more people had more money in their pocket. So the complaint of the minority was not heard loudly as now. So now the majority have no money in their pocket. So even if you keep reducing unga, and you think this is the statistics I want to keep reading in every other gathering, I mean, it won't make a big difference.
Kevin Karibu, how is your week?
I can't complain.
Your major highlights?
And I think it is one of my very good weeks, especially when I meet my good friend Odede and now
Noordean.
So I think I'm at home.
Now, while you were away, Noordean has had a blank check, and he has indicated that anytime he sees President Ruto with a speech, he can predict with 99% accuracy what he's going to be talking about. And I'm putting words into his mouth carefully, that he's got a speech maybe of 16 paragraphs, so he keeps on changing the paragraphs. At some stage, the first paragraph becomes the third. And he has reduced it, and he said that the president not only make promises, but he gets an A in lying.
I think that lying is far-fetched. My statement opening is this. When I don't like you, I can't miss matope ya kukupaka. I will even use my saliva to put on dry soil and use it to smear you.
On your white shirt.
To smear you. That I will do. And that is what I happen to have been with him over the week. On that very day, the president was giving his speech on a set just like this. And even him, you will always predict what he's going to say. You will always predict what
When it's concerned William Ruto.
Yes, you can always predict.
That's a good one.
But I agree with Odede when he's saying that reducing prices is not improving the economy. But there are a few things we have to talk about. We have to put in perspective and talk about them. What the government does and ought to be doing is creating a conducive atmosphere, a conducive environment for companies to thrive, for investors to invest. And with that, more people get employment, more businesses get customers, and we go on like that. But also remember, when prices are reduced, more money is left in your pocket. It puts money in your pocket. Disposable incomes become more. And let me tell you something. When you have a lot of money, everything looks cheap. And we have no money, everything looks expensive, even when they are not. So, making things cheaper puts money into your pocket and makes you look at life as cheap. So it is not entirely that when you reduce prices, you are not improving the economy. We must work in an economy in which the cost of production is reduced so that the cost of consumption is also reduced. And that is what the president has been struggling to do all along, making sure electricity reaches every part of this country by ensuring that Ketraco has the capacity to make electricity reach every corner of this country. When it was clear they do not have that capacity and the government could not borrow anymore, they looked for a private investor. It so happened that the private investor that was available and willing was Adani. And from where I sit even today, I do not believe Adani was entirely that bad. We have worked with companies that later, after working with them, we realized they were not good or they have been bad in the past. But if we have a watertight contract with them, this is what you are going to do for us, this is what you are going to get from us. That is it. We built this expressway using a PPPP, public-private partnership. Kenyans did not even know who did it. Even today, probably if you ask these two, they will not tell you who did that project. But they never made noise. And if there is any scam in this country, it may probably be that one. So when some people have ganged up against you, it doesn't matter how many they are, and they have decided they are going to paint you dirty, even if you deny them matope, they'll get it. So these people ganged up and they decided to paint the president dirty. Odede and Noordean are just joining in. They don't know what is going on. They have seen people yelling that the president has this problem or that, Kenya has this, and they have joined in without really understanding what is really happening in this country. President William Ruto, if there is anything that is going to make him get re-elected, it is the Taifa Care. It is the Shah that has come up with something called SHIF, that they have learned to matopenize so much, it is a game changer. Matopenize. You can add that to the Oxford Dictionary.
Yes. Next year it will be added.
Yes. So it is going to work. Now, when you say, when Noordean says that I can always predict the president's speech, you know, the president is talking to Kenyans. And these Kenyans, they relate from professors all the way down to those people who understand almost nothing. And the president is responding to what they were crying about. They were crying about the cost of living. That is why the president has to come up and talk the language they understand. If the president had to call us, me, you, Noordean, and Odede to talk to, the language will be completely different. You have never had the opportunity to have the whole school in one class and you want to teach all of them. You have to be very careful in the language you select. In fact, you can teach them actually by answering the questions they ask, something the president is doing now. Because if you bring your own, you will leave the class ones behind. If you try another one, you will leave the form fours behind. If you try another one, you will leave the professors behind. So Kenyans made noise and say the cost of living. That is why the president is trying to ensure that the cost of living is lowered. The prices of goods are lowered. And sometimes it is not lowered in the perspective that you think. It is lowered from an economic angle. A price of a good can be lowered just by putting more money in your pocket. And you will see it low, and you will see it affordable. At this level, when you walk in your village and you find a mama with a trough of bananas selling, you are not even going to ask the price. You are going to pick one piece, taste it if you like it, you tell her, put for me 16, and then you say how much. Because you are certain it is cheap, you can afford it. But there is somebody who will come, not only ask for the price, but also bargain. So when you have money, things look cheap. When you don't have, they look expensive. So what the president has been trying to do is trying to make things look cheap for all Kenyans.
Now talking about Jamhuri Day speech, yes. President Ruto says he's a man on a mission. And he's got a great dream for Kenya.
Exactly.
And he says that this environment has been polluted by misinformation and disinformation.
Exactly.
And then on the other hand, Kalonzo says, wait a minute, the president is presenting alternative facts.
Let me tell you, Kalonzo Musyoka is a man in a struggle. He's struggling to make himself a credible and believable opposition leader. If you are not born to be a credible and believable opposition leader, you will never make one. Because this is a fumbling man. How do I call him a fumbling man? This is the same man who went around the country all over, trying to tell the country that President William Ruto is trying to delay the appointment of IEBC commissioners. Yet it is him who went to court to stop the selection committee from taking office. Why? Because his Kokimuli was not in the committee. He was defeated 7 votes to 14 by one Professor Gastas Muli. It is Kalonzo. In fact, a very interesting thing, the other person who talks about this thing and tried to apportion blame was Lenaola. Yet it is the courts who granted this injunction. In fact, the rate at which courts are granting injunctions in this country, one day I will go to court and say, your wife is my wife, and they will grant me injunction and say, Mokua, keep away from that woman until the court is heard. The matter is heard. Yes, because if somebody is coming with something that is going to stop a constitutional process, a process that has been used before, and you grant it, and even after granting it, you don't make the hearing tomorrow. You give us 3 months. Then a member of that very judiciary comes to read for us the Riot Act. We are not stupid.
Reading a Riot Act, or he was making an observation?
From where I sit, or from how the media reported it, he was reading us a Riot Act. And I even listened to him. He was apportioning blame. In fact, that's what I said first. He's apportioning blame. He should have gone to talk to his boss, a lady they sit with on the same bench all the time, and say, we need to do something. We need to call the judges and tell them when it is matters of national interest, we need to act quickly. We need to act fast, the same way we have acted in matters of national interest before.
Now, there's a matter of national interest, livestock vaccination. Again, your friend comes in because the government says that they want to engage in a country-aid program targeting 22 million cows and 50 million goats and sheep. The purpose of the vaccination campaign is to make sure that all these livestock are taken care of so as to open other new markets. However, the same gentleman you make reference to, Kalonzo Musyoka, says, wait a minute, I'm smelling a rat. Now, when you go through the contents of this vaccination, it sounds like a very good idea, something that should have been embraced yesterday. How come there is open hostility? How come there is resentment? Would you say that the people who have been given the responsibility by the president, the cabinet secretary, the principal secretary, the officers concerned, would you say they are failing the president? Would you say they are competent?
Mokua, there I will not blame anybody working for the president. I told you very here, when you don't like somebody, you will never miss matope ya kumpakia.
Matopenize.
You will never fail to get to matopenize him. This is not the first time animals have been vaccinated in this country. And it's not only animals. Children and even adults have been vaccinated. And of course, Kalonzo Musyoka, no, he has not given us a source of a better vaccination than this one coming. If you are a leader and you think some leaders are wrong, bring your alternative on the table for the people to see that the president was trying to bring a bad vaccine, but I know where better ones are going to come from. Kalonzo thinks that to be a credible and believable opposition leader, you criticize and oppose each and everything that comes from the government of the day. It doesn't work like that. He needs to go to Raila Odinga for some lessons. He will know what matters and what doesn't matter. What you can criticize and what you can't criticize. What you can oppose and what you can't oppose. But you can't be there waking up every morning looking for your nearest coat and a tie and you're calling the press. I think the press should now learn that there are some people who are serious, others are not. Vaccination. You know, when we export meat, there's a way in which they inspect that meat for export. And that is this problem we are trying to solve. Whatever diseases, whatever ailments that our meat can have must be sorted here before it's exported. Also, generally, we need to keep our animals healthy, even if it is not for export, even for our local consumption. I do not know what alternative Kalonzo Musyoka gave Kenyans. I do not know. And it does not matter. We don't have to all the time. The government want to do something for public good. It has to come out explaining. It is very costly providing civic education. It should just be mild. We have done this before and we did not know that the president suddenly has such serious enemies that he must explain himself at every project.
Every time. Now, Noordean, we don't want to predict what you are going to say. You are in a panel.
I can tell.
Yeah. What do you make of this vaccination campaign, the commercial benefits and the open hostilities?
First and foremost, just disclaimer. I don't dislike him. I have nothing against him. But I have,
who is that? Kalonzo?
That is the president.
Oh, okay.
Nor any political leader that is there. I have nothing against any of them. I am just pro good governance, accountability, and constitutionalism. Where you go right, you will not find me trying to castigate that. But where you do something that is wrong, of course, we'll have to ask for accountability. This issue of the vaccines, like I rightfully told you when you started, the issue with this administration is one. It believes that, one, it knows everything, and that is why we're being called stupid. That is why we're told that, oh, we're making noise. I was on a panel with him, someone was trying to say I'm making noise. And also...
You're making noise?
Just because I ask questions. And you know my questions sometimes, if you can't answer, you'll come up
out noise.
there'll be noise. And I think I should borrow Messi.
They'll come out noisy.
And I should finish with noisy, Messi with casualties. So the issue is, when we ask about these things, it's more or less about accountability. When someone asks a question, you just answer. For example, the issue of vaccines. When the president came out and said that, we need to vaccinate our animals, there were questions as, what is this vaccine? What are the components? Those are good questions, valid questions. Anyone that has cattle should be answered, you know. But when you say, what is that? You know, it doesn't make sense, because one, you're being paid by taxpayers' money. The so-called power you think you have is power that belongs to the people. You just have delegated power. So when people ask questions, as many times as they want, you have to answer, whether you like it or not. Now, the issue of the vaccines, there were allegations. There's a startup called Akea Bio, which is a company in Boston, that raised $26.5 million. Funded, the investment venture was funded by Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates is a man that has several allegations against him, and Kenyans have a question as to why this was done. This startup company raised these funds due to cow fats and burps. So when people see the dealings you have with Bill Gates, and we know his craze as to animals, as in the US, and that is why Kennedy has been given the health docket to clean the mess allegedly that he caused. When people see the dealings you have with him, of course they have questions to ask. Because at the end of the day, he is pro-depopulation. What is that? So at the end of the day, when we raise such questions, it's not for government to come and say, you know nothing about cattle. Because if, for example, I have info on such a startup bio, of course I've done my research, I've read about it. So we are asking questions. What is this vaccination campaign out of the blues that is a must by fire, by force? It can't work like that.
The VAPI that is offering the vaccines is a Kenyan, Parastato is a Kenyan company owned by the government of the Republic of Kenya. How does Bill Gates come in? You
see, I've told you something. One, the question or the concerns come from the fact that of his dealings with the man, all right? And there are allegations that he actually has a residence here, all right? So at the end of the day, if people feel uncomfortable about a certain thing, the best thing to do is to have a conversation. He said we shouldn't ask too many questions. We should ask as many questions as possible. The problem with this government, they feel they are attacked because people ask questions you don't want to answer. You want to chest them. And that is why the Adani thing is still painful to them to date. Lakini wacha waongee itatoka. So at the end of the day, the beauty is that if you feel the fact that you don't want to answer our questions, then that is, their question marks. Because they do things shredded with secrecy. Why? Why are you hiding information? You just want us to follow like sheep. We're not your cattle. We will not follow things like members of parliament who are cattle, who wake up, by the way, how we vote in. You dare vote in X or dare vote in Y, and you vote as per the party leader. That's how things are supposed to work. So if this government would open itself up to one, critique, positive, because there are some, yes, I do agree, there is some that is not positive criticism, it's just majorly banter. Case in point, we see the things that go around. You asked me what he has done, what I can count. But he has united Kenyans, not united by a bread-based, but by the silhouettes and the chants. They must go chants. He has united Kenyans, by the way. So what I'm saying in essence is let them open up themselves to criticism, positive criticism. Take it. Sometimes that person you think is anti you or hates you has a point that your sycophants or those who are close to you will be afraid to tell you. Most of the time, even if someone has just some criticism that you think is rubbish, one or two things can come out of that that can help you. But if you feel you know everything, then we have a problem where it will be like you're a ruler. There's no ruler in this country. You're a leader, no ruler. Because a ruler means you're there for life. A leader, you have been delegated some authority, which, remember, nowhere. The Constitution doesn't say you have to finish 5 years. This conversation, give us time to, you don't have to. If we feel, for example, a member of parliament, you talked about MCAs, you forgot to members of parliament. If you feel a member of parliament is not doing what you sent them to do, it's a hire and fire. That's when you have a business and you employ someone, they have a 2-year or 3-year contract and they don't work. You don't tell us, watch and formulate 2-3 years. That's why you have summary dismissal. And if you dismiss them and they go to do someone like Noordean, and if we see they fail on their contract, of course they don't win.
But impeachment is summary dismissal. But going to Meshack, there's been a conversation that in fact the President Ruto's administration does not have a communication challenge. It's the appointed officers who are incompetent. So if you're incompetent, probably there's nothing to communicate. How does that play in context of this national vaccination campaign?
First, I don't believe that they don't have people who can communicate. They have people who can communicate. I just think there was over-excitement at the beginning. And so people spoke, including things they were not supposed to say in places they were not supposed to say them. But unfortunately, Kenya, as a country, is a little bit ahead of these many other countries in our region. So whatever I speak here today will remain on record. And if tomorrow I'm the governor of Nairobi, I'm not saying I'm running for governor.
No, you can declare your interest.
If tomorrow I am the governor of Nairobi, they will dig down and get the clips of what I am saying here. And that proactiveness of Kenyans is what is exposing some of these things. Because again, like few months back here, the president could say one thing and in the next 2 minutes on social media, Kenyans have dug deep to the things he said during campaign, whether it is conflicting. So Kenyans have got data in the internet that really keeps the leaders on toes. Yes. And that is why the people like Akina Joho are now finding it rough, and sometimes they even want to lose their cool as well, because Kenyans can dig deep and just in 1 minute and give you the clip where you are thinking President Ruto ni Baradhuli. So in 2 minutes, they can compare what you are saying now and then. So I think this proactiveness of Kenyans, especially the younger generation, millennials, Gen Zs, and even the alphas, are the ones doing the real work to put leaders to account on what they say. So it should not be seen in the light that this means people are fighting the government. People are trying to make their government accountable. And this is where I have a problem when my brother Odoyo would say, if you want to make someone bad, you will not miss what to. I think if we take that direction, it is also locking our mind into accepting where we are wrong and where we are not. Because anytime I say this is not right, your answer is one. He doesn't like me, so he will always find something. So what time do we now have to actually interrogate and say, yes, here you are right, here you are wrong? From both sides. There are people who are opposed to this government politically are supposed to accept in some places and say, here we were wrong, the government is right. But the government on the other side is also supposed to accept in some spaces that we didn't get it right here. So it cannot be that the position is whatever William Ruto and the entire Kenya Kwanza government does must be wrong. And on the other side, whatever, it's like someone standing on the hill and another one on the valley. Everywhere around them is a hill, and the one standing on a hill, every place around them is a valley. So we can't go that direction. So coming to this particular thing, there is part of something we are forgetting. There is also a hand of the Western powers in our politics, not just this particular thing, in our politics generally. One part of it that I want to agree with Odoyo is one. For us to get our market, the market that we need as a country to export, we need to do this. We need to do this, and we need to make the entire world believe that whatever you export from Kenya is legit. You saw the days when we had issues with KFC and Waru. They knocked us. They knocked us 10-0 because we rose so quickly to castigate them and say, why are they not using our Waru in Nyandarua and blah, blah. They told us the international, KFC is an international farm and the standard is here. Meet this standard, we have all your Waru in our KFC. So the same way it will go with the livestock and the meat we want to export. We need to meet some standard. So I think at that pace, the president wants us to meet some standard. But now, what I said earlier, when you when you bring the people who did your campaign messaging into the office, you mess it up, because every time they want to score a point for you, which is not necessary. At this point, we need someone to break down the policy, full stop. Just break down the policy without making it look like a score for the president. The policy requires us to meet this standard, and once we meet this standard, we can increase the export, and once we increase the export, we have money in our pocket, we afford things. Don't make it a campaign for the president for 2027. That is where we mess everything. Because when every leader stands on that pulpit or podium and they want to make the president feel good, they make it look like this is a score for you, Mr. President. There is a time to do that score. It is coming in 2027. Right now, make people understand why this vaccination is very important. Right now, make people understand why shisha is so important and where shisha knocks. you know what I'm talking about. you are disrupting.
I just wanted some clarity.
No, why Shah or Chief goes beyond what NHIF was giving Kenyans. So once we afford that, Kenyans are not fools. In 2027, they will make a decision based on that, because they will know for sure, I had NHIF before. It did not give me 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in the past 2-3 years, I have had Shah or Chief. It has given me 1, 2, 3, 4 extra. I think this is it. So don't try to give President all the points now that it has to be now. That is where I have a problem. So when we pick the people who did our campaign messaging into the office to be our communication team, including governors in the counties, they tend to keep projecting everything into the campaign of that governor in that particular county all through. And people begin to believe that our concerns are not being adequately responded to. What we are seeing is everything about how the governor is good, how good the governor is, or how good the president is. So personally, I think vaccination has a bigger agenda, but how it is communicated cannot be that anybody who raises a question on it is a fool or probably a stupid or things like that. It is just supposed to be, we know your questions are a big concern to you, but we have answers. But now coming to borrow a bit, the weakest link here is members of parliament, because they are the representatives of the people, who the people elected directly and donated power to go and represent. As we speak today, do we know how many members of parliament have problem with this vaccination and those who do not have problem? We don't know, because they are going with current. If they find themselves around Kalonzo Musyoka, who probably have questions around this, all those members of parliament have got questions. If they go around Mr. President, who is pushing this agenda, all those members of parliament don't have any problem. So we don't know where our members of parliament are without the president or the opposition leader. I mean, they are just supposed to be in this particular place on their own without the president and without the opposition leader, and they are supposed to tell their people, if I am the member of parliament for constituency X, I am supposed to just discuss with my people and tell them genuinely what I know as their representative and what I think about this. And that does not require you to be in the government or opposition. It is just you representing your people, full stop.
Now, Odoyo, when there's a crisis in the education sector, President Ruto does a town hall. Nobody gets to know where the CS is and the PS. When there's a crisis in the healthcare sector, it's the president who is doing a town hall. The CS, PS missing in action. Right now we have open hostilities to the vaccination. The CS, PS missing in action.
I think you have challenged me because I remember one day I sat and the president said, if I come to your ministry and I find I know more than you do, you are in trouble. Nevertheless, you know, even the CSS and PSS never expected this level of hostility to government projects. And so I think they were not prepared. But now I am seeing they are taking the lead in this explanation. In fact, some people even go ahead explaining things which are not even in their dockets. I was in Nyanza explaining this thing that even my very educated friend has refused to distinguish between Shif and Shah. So let me, before I even go far, there is an agency called Social Health Authority. This agency is the one managing SHIF, Social Health Insurance Fund. That is, one is the agency, one is the fund. So the agency is managing the fund. So actually, I'd put that down. What I was saying, it was saying that the Kenyans are now proactive and are ready. Each time you say anything, they dig deep and come. And many of the things they come up with are past statements. The only thing they never tell us most of the time, the circumstances under which such statements were made, the context under which they were made, the political alignments under which they were made. There are certain things you must also remember. People play politics generally in this country for their political parties. And when they change political parties, they most of the time begin to defend what they used to criticize. And that is why I was telling you, when you want to criticize or oppose anybody, you will never miss to find enough matope to matopenize it. Because you are playing for that team now. So, for example, during campaigns, there is the manifesto. There are promises. There are covenants. There is pep talk. There are suggestions. All those are said during campaigns. Some of them are not enforceable. Some of them you cannot take me to court that I did not deliver it. Some of them you cannot challenge because that is the moment for seeking votes. Sometimes it is just a suggestion that if I would be the president, I would do this. But then you realize that when you finally become, the resources may not even be there. So we must also look at this thing from the context under which they were said, from the circumstances under which they were said, who said them to who then. I had said that we criticize everything, and he was saying that if we take that line, we are going to have a problem because everything that I'm criticized with, I will say it's because he doesn't like me. But when I was saying that, I had very clear examples. I have never understood in this country why somebody is criticizing SHIF. Because it is clearly a better fund than the NHIF, better managed with better data and better spread of contributions. But people are criticizing it. The same people are also the ones criticizing the animal vaccination. In this country, we have had animal vaccinations before. We have had children vaccinations before. We have had general people vaccinations before. And almost all of them are donor funded.
As late as COVID.
As late as COVID. Donor funded. And I never had all this I am hearing today. And these people talking today the way they are doing were all adults and politicians then. They said nothing. That is why it is my conclusion that when people choose that they don't like you and they don't like whatever you will say, they will criticize everything. That is why sometimes I ask my people in government sometimes to ignore some of these people. Because sometimes people who purport to be giving you advice that this thing is bad or wrong are actually people who would like to see you fail. They are your political opponents who would want to see you fail. Take, for example, injecting IEBC selection panel. It was not necessary. In any case, the election system we have in Kenya today is foolproof. If you see anybody even running to court that it has been stolen, it has not been stolen. It is just managing the supporters. Nobody can steal, because election is done at a polling station where you have your agent, your opponent has his agent, it is done and it gets into the system there and then. And it not only gets into the system, a backup remains with your agent, a backup remains with IEBC, and a backup is put in the portal for everyone to see. All these people, if they don't tally, then there's a problem. But even in the last petition, we never saw a single case where the backup that remained pinned on the door, the ones that went with your opponents, there were 3 of them, and the ones that went in the system were different. Nothing. We never got to that point. So, even it doesn't matter who is in this IEBC commission. The system is now foolproof. It will work for everyone. Now, let me take on my friend Noordean. Noordean said that this is a government that believes that it knows everything. I think you need to understand what a government is. The reason why we have laws, the reason why we have constitutions, that we have policies, the reason why we have rules is so that experts do what they have their expertise on. We are not going to have public participation in everything. Soon Kenyans will demand that if Mokua is in court, we need to do public participation whether he can be jailed or not. We are not going to do that. When we have sent our representatives in the National Assembly, the only thing we are told again by law is we make the assembly accessible to the public, open it to the media. That is enough public participation. You are not going to tell us that we are going to have legislators which you were selected, that this is the one who is going to take my interest in the National Assembly, is going to vote somebody out, and you still want your opinion to be the one that works. I told you on this platform that even if the public opinion was against the impeachment of Rigiji, those who are going to make the decisions are the people we had given the mandate to impeach or not to impeach him, because that is the law. There is nowhere where it is said if public participation disagrees with anything, you stop it. Not even an opportunity to disagree, they are not given. We don't have a method in which we can quantify the opinions in public participation. We don't have. That law simply wanted the people to know what is going on, so that we don't wake up one day and find somebody had taken a bill to parliament in which selling and processed milk was illegalized. You know, it is illegal in Kenya. We don't want to wake up in the morning and find using animal manure is illegal. We need to know, so that if we are going to make a decision on whether to elect or re-elect these people, we know the bad laws they made. But if they make bad things and we are not told, we cannot judge them in the future. So we appoint people to offices so as to make decisions on our behalf. If they have already made decision that it is good now to vaccinate our animals, give them that opportunity. If you question, we will give you an answer. But don't make it a campaign that is matopenizing the whole thing. I also told you this is not the first time an American organization is giving us aid. They gave us during the COVID, they have given us before, they gave us during the polio campaigns, and they will always continue giving us. This is simply a campaign against President William Ruto. You know, Noordean always tells me about I read. It is no longer fashionable to read. It is no longer an authority to say I read, if you do not very clearly tell us from where you read it. Because there is a lot of disinformation and misinformation hanging around on social media and the internet. So it is no longer going to be fashionable to run around with that, oh, we read, I read. Kenyans, of course, did not question the COVID vaccinations. And it was more dangerous than anything. Not in animals, not even human beings. But because they want to drag the president back, they have realized the president explained some of these things by himself. So each time they make a statement, they know he will come out trying to explain, and they reduce his power. But remember, some of these people complaining are people who are your detractors who want to fail. Finally, but equally important, chief is going to make President William Ruto be re-elected in this country. You know how much my PS pays for shift? 25,000. But he has a private insurance. He pays that 25,000 to cater for other Kenyans who are poorer. You know, my auntie who used to pay 500 is paying now 300.
And the PS is paying 25,000.
And the PS doesn't even use it. And this is why everybody is now getting treatment. In fact, if there's anybody who has not registered, you better register, because registration is already required. And as soon as you register, unlike NHIF, you begin to get the benefits of the fund.
Now, I suspect Meshack is well advised on Shif and Shash, but because time is running out, let's start with Meshack to give you concluding remarks in 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I think we are at, democratically, we are at a much better place as a country compared to the countries around us. So that one is no doubt. But questioning and putting our leaders to account is still needed even more. Because when we get to a place where we will say, it's all over for us, everything is okay, we will be lying to ourselves. Even in the mature democracies like the US and Europe are still having questions around their governance. So the basic thing is, in every governance, we will not have a government anytime which is 100% great. There has to be loopholes. And that is where people like Odoyo needs to understand. Or sometimes go to the show and say, for sure, this and this, our government has not done very well. The rest, they have done well. Because if you can't say that, you're simply saying you have done 100%.
You know, maybe he works for an insurance company and he can't accept liability.
Maybe. But there are also some realities. This is on a light note. You know, when the president says there are people who have not gone to the airport and are complaining the airport in Ibiza, maybe he's talking about that young boy who Eric Omondi had put in the plane for the first time, but he is our hero, quote unquote, of who saved the airport. Wameuza airport, wameuzia muhindi. He was the face of this whole airport protest, when for sure he had not gone to the airport. So when the president say maybe there is a bit of the truth that some people had not gone to the airport, but they were making noise about the airport. Then finally, I think we need to, if it is reconfiguration, then so be it. We need to know as people that politicians will always talk. It is too much expectation that if Raila Odinga and William Ruto competed in the 2022 election, then I was supporting Raila Odinga and you are supporting William Ruto. Whenever they meet, we should see them fighting. If there is no fight, then we run to the internet and start saying, unaona tumewachwa kwa mataa. There is nothing like that. These people will always talk, because that is what leadership is. Even in the US, Trump had always been in the opposition during Biden's period, but doesn't mean every other time they met in the same space they were fighting. So Kenyans should not expect too much. I call it over expectation, that whenever a leader is in a public space like this and says something against the other side, then the next time you see them shaking hands, you feel like, unaona, tumewachwa kwa mataa. Kenyans, you are alone. I think that is a very myopic thinking. They will always differ. They will always put their position. Even Raila Odinga, as at now, he has been working very close with William Ruto, but it has not stopped him from saying some things. He has said a few things here and there that he doesn't feel. We should not expect that today, if there is a meeting and Rigiji is in that meeting and President William Ruto is in that meeting, then we should start seeing blows happening all around, kicks and everything. We will see people shaking hands and we will see people smiling, and sometimes they will make a joke with each other, and does not mean Rigiji is now back in government. He is now back to, or supporters of Kindiki should begin to say, our Kindiki is going, Rigiji is back to his seat. So I think Kenyans need to just learn and know that taking your political position is one thing, but doesn't mean that every time these leaders should be fighting, because leadership is showing responsibility. I can defend you as my people, and we can still talk with the other side and agree. Even if it is Kalonzo tomorrow, I will see with William Ruto shaking hands or smiling. It wouldn't mean to me that now Kalonzo has also left opposition, now there is no opposition. I will believe that there is still opposition going to be, and Kalonzo will still continue questioning whatever he feels is not going right. But all in all, we are messing up the country when we have political tensions from the day we elect a president to the last day he is in the office, because there is no period where we come back to now start looking at what achievements are we having as a country. And it is happening in my Luo land even more. When you have this political tension between the one who wants to be governor and the one who is sitting as the governor, no, every other county in the Luo Nyanza. It means the people who are like, let me just use example from Migori where I come from. The people who are behind Ochilo, for example, will not see anything wrong Ochilo is doing because there is a Mark Nyamita somewhere or somebody else, John Pesa or anybody who wants to replace him in the coming election. So when this tension is all through, those people don't have time for 1 minute to consider that is the governor doing the right thing. They always on the defense mode for a man they elected, and the opposite side the same way. So if we cool down all those temperatures at the county, we will, even the supporters of that particular working governor will know this one governor has not done right. This one he has done.
Is that not the place where those political tensions are disrupted Jamhuri Day?
Yeah, those are the places. So what I'm saying is, if we reduce that tension, and I am saying that because that is what I believe the leaders at the national level, beginning with President William Ruto, is trying to do. Because if he reaches out to former President Uhuru Kenyatta, he has reached out to Raila Odinga, and the tension is coming down, it is easy for a die-hard William Ruto supporter to see where Ruto is not right. But if the fight is on top, a diehard William Ruto supporter will not see anything wrong because he will be in the mode to defend his man. So I think when it is done at the national level, it is also supposed to be escalated to the counties so that Kenyans can get value for the money they pay in taxes.
Thanks a lot. Now, Noordean, a member who follows you closely on social media, said that he has not seen you, had you say anything positive about the Kenya Kwanza administration for the last 2 years.
Well, you
break
see,
the silence.
well, you see, like I rightfully told you, you see, if you say that, then Uhuru would say the same thing. Because even when Uhuru was in office, where he erred, I always said it, even BBI. And the beauty about me, what I say today, I'll never change. I do not suffer from political acrobatism like the MPs we have, who go as per the Benguela currents. If today the ODM is going left, they go left like cattle without asking why. If UDA is going X, they go X without asking why. I don't suffer from that. That is a sad reality, and that is why when you talk about public participation, he rightfully says that we shouldn't ask everything, and we shouldn't put everything in public participation. Anything on governance must be put to public participation. Because these same members of parliament you're talking about, in the last parliament, there were allegations during the sugar issue. Some were saying that some were being bribed 10,000 shillings at the toilet. This same parliament, snitches get riches. Some said that during Rigiji's impeachment, there was some money going on. Then they came back and recanted. All right? So that is not a house we will put our trust on fully, where we know they can be bought. They themselves say that it happens. So you expect public participation to protect us or shield us from that. For anyone who thinks that we are, and it's not been anti, but when a government is not doing something to satisfy the common man, then there's an issue. He talked about Chief Taifa Care. He can say Shisha. You see, as he says it's working very well, there are instances it's not working. and this is courtesy of my conversation with friends of mine who are doctors. He said that Noordean keeps saying, I read. Now, the beauty about being an advocate of the High Court of Kenya is that I read, and a mediator, is that I read and research for a living. Once I leave you, I'm going to read on some other things. You see, that is the beauty about being what I am for a living. So when we say something, it doesn't come from a point of malice. See whatever you think works. What you think doesn't work, niwachie. But the moment you see me and you say like that person says, I'm anti or I dislike the president. You see, let me tell you, in 2023, when I was still going for these panel sessions, I used to say whatever Gachagua is saying about shareholders was wrong. And I've never changed that to date. And I said it when the president was using the Emirates jet. I was saying that, why ambassador number one, why are you landing and flying Emirates jet? How are you promoting us as a country? And immediately he stopped. So maybe he watches. So maybe he listens sometimes. So you see, these things we say, they don't come from a point of malice.
But you've been accusing him of not listening.
You see, he takes what he wants to take. But where he has interest, he doesn't want to listen. That's the problem. And that is why I keep saying, when you look at these CSs and PSs, Gachagua made an allegation that during cabinet, they come with their hands behind their backs and they look down and they don't ask anything. Whatever is passed there has already been passed before it gets to parliament. Now that can't be how we run. They are crazy on. We are the first to do this. First, let me ask you a question, Mokua. All right?
Yes.
During Uhuru's time, was there a citizen? Was there?
Of course.
So what were you relaunching the other day? Just because you move government services to be paying there, then you mark in citizen 1 year anniversary. What is that? And you see,
maybe the prior had probably one service.
It doesn't.
This one has got about.
There's nothing to relaunch. You say this government is crazy on relaunching things. Don't relaunch just anything for the sake of relaunching. If you want, I'll tell you this as I conclude. If they want Kenyans to say you're working, my friend, they'll feel it. If the economy is working, Kenyans will feel it. He just talked about how if he has 2K and the bread is 100, he won't feel a pinch. Simply saying he would like to live in Monaco. You know Monaco life is expensive, but you don't care because there's money. So money, there's a cash flow. So long as money is there,
Pesa mfukoni.
Pesa mfukoni. This government said pesa mfukoni, but say wanaambiwa hamwezi to advise. Lakini nyinyi mlikuwa alisema napeleka mama mboga boda status. But right now their advice, which he used to go and sit with them kwa kikao amongst them, to be like them in quotes and sign charters with them. Right now, they can't advise him because they know nothing as to what he's doing. And that is wrong.
All those county charters.
You know, actually, you've given me an assignment. I will go sit down and look at all those charters. The next time I'm with you, when I come here, I just told you today, the Grammys he has paid 500 million shillings have actually said that it is being hosted in LA. Can you get our money back? And then why are we paying to host it? Is it corruption? What is that? As I conclude, again, advice to them, they can take it or not. This shisha of theirs that they are implementing, NIHIF had loopholes as to corruption. Have they sealed those corruptions? Because the current cabinet secretary allegedly say that to date, still 2 billion shillings is lost in our economy. So NIHIF had issues on corruption. Have they sealed them? If they haven't, this thing they say will be their campaign mantra going forward, like Uru used the SGR. If this is their campaign, loopholes, have they sealed? Because at the end of the day, there was a question raised in Parliament, as I close this book, a question raised in Parliament that when dissolving NHIF had assets. What happened to the assets belonging to NHIF? And that maybe he's in a position to tell us.
But the new organization takes care of
now,
all the assets and liabilities.
The one asked the question was unable to answer.
Who was that?
That was the cabinet secretary.
Kevin Owidi, have the last word.
You know why I like Noordean? Because he makes me think. But let me remind you that the Emirates, the jet that was used, was just used to cross the Atlantic. You choose your car according to where you want to go. When the president wanted to cross the Atlantic to the United States, he had to get something that would cross. But the people who criticize it suggested that he takes a KQ plane, that jet that could cross. But they did not tell us how much we are going to lose in terms of revenue, because that plane would have to be there on the parking until he leaves. They did not tell us how much we are going to lose in terms of revenue until the president comes back. Nevertheless, that is something that is water under the bridge. You know, Noordean was saying Even though you are saying this NHIF is acting, there are instances, just that. I don't need to add anything. There is nothing new that will work smoothly. Even when we launched the new M-Pesa, it kept failing and starting failing. That's the nature of things. Just like a newborn baby will always cry. That is the nature of things. My only difference in the public participation thing, it is how people interpret it. Many people, including Wakili Kamai, have misinterpreted public participation to mean that it would replace the bodies and the agencies that are supposed to do certain things. Like they were behaving like if the public overweighed the parliament, it would not impeach Rigiji, they would be impeached. And this relaunching, let me tell you what it means in other words. Launching projects is a form of public participation. And you will discover the process of launches is exactly as described in the article under public participation in the Katiba. Exactly. So launching projects is make the public be part of what you are doing. Odede talked about Migori, and I was listening with a smile at the corner of my mouth about Ochilo and Nyamita, and because Nyamita is there, Ochilo supporters are never seeing Ochilo's mistakes, and vice versa. That is exactly what is happening, why MPs elected on ODM, everybody elected on ODM today, many of them are telling us that we are not in government. Because they are looking for an enemy to blame so that they get easily elected, so that their mistakes are forgotten, so that their mistake can be shifted to the government of the day, which is an enemy. If the government of the day is no enemy to us, many of them would not be elected because they love blaming and counter-blaming. They love people. That is why even religion succeeds, because there's Satan to blame for everything. So, that is, but before I close down, there was something that I heard today when I was coming here. A statement by the former DP. The former DP was saying the mountain is very angry. And he was going ahead to say that betrayal is a taboo in the mountain. I wish I was there to ask him, Rigiji, if betrayal is a taboo in the mountain, how did Kenyatta betray Jaramogi? Did he survive? How did he survive? How did Kibaki survive after betraying Raila? How, if it is a taboo in the mountain? What happened to Uhuru after betraying William Ruto? The first person to fire salvo that Ruto is a tanga-tanga. After he had said before that his is 10, Ruto is 10. Wasn't that not the worst betrayal in recent times? And all these people I'm counting come from that very mountain. And I don't know who chose Rigiji to be the spokesman of the mountain, because I heard him also saying that he will come and tell the people of Kenya the way forward in the mountain.
So what is your message to Rigiji?
What I'm telling Rigiji, he is lying. I told you here, he's not a truthful man. He's a brazen man. A brazen man is a man who can say things that you, me, and this ordinary man would be too embarrassed to say. Betrayal is what Rigiji did to President William Ruto when President William Ruto was under siege from the Gen Zs. A people he collected, organized, trained, and funded. That is the height of betrayal. The one he says is a taboo in the mountain. And he was supported by one Khagai Mutai, a man I believed betrayed Gakuru. So let us be fair to everyone. Don't just lie because nobody will question your lies.
Now, there's a again, a member of the audience wants clarity. You've indicated that the members of ODM say that they're not in government or they're in government because of the fear of the next general elections. So now, assuming that Mr. Raila Odinga becomes the chairman of AUC next year, would you say for the first time, Luo Nyanza will have free, fair, credible party primaries?
You know, Raila Odinga at AU will be the same one outside AU.
Okay.
Yes. It's that simple. I don't need to add anything.
You don't need to say anything else.
No.
You know, the way you started the statement, there was under the circumstances, Meshack has to weigh in.
Unless he comes and says, I will never talk anything Kenyan and Kenyan politics until my term at the AUC is over. That will be a different story. But still he can call at night and say, because you see, there are people who don't have the wherewithal to see Raila Odinga as a human being. There are people who see him as a God, and when God speaks to men, you remember that book? Men take it seriously.
And Noordean has read many books.
It only takes people like me to see him as a man, a human being with his flaws, with his weaknesses, and with his strengths also. I've sat here to mention to you some of his strengths. So I think the people are worried out there whether they will get the help they have got from him again and again. But you see, when I had Odede talk and criticize the MPs very badly, and he's the spokesman of ODM, and I was wondering, why don't you tell ODM people to elect proper people? People who can advise their constituents.
Who is the ODM spokesman?
Odede.
Meshack, as the ODM spokesperson.
It is a 50-50 thing. There are people who get elected because they have to bash Raila, they have to say all sorts of things. So when they stand where they are, thinking that when Raila goes to the AU, the people who praise Raila will not get elected, they will also not get elected because they also get elected on the basis of making Raila a demon. So that means everybody will not be elected because Raila is the barometer. Either you love him so much, you get elected for that, or you hate him so much, you get elected
for hating Raila. I have never seen.
You have never seen?
I have never seen.
Where have you been? When Moses Kuria was getting elected,
Where?
almost free without competition.
No.
What was he doing to the people of Gatundu that made the people of Gatundu feel that this is the reason? This is the reason why we are electing.
Now I understand you.
Yes.
That example is good enough.
So that is good enough. So Baba still remains the barometer, but when he goes, it is true. Many people will have to now find themselves. Like the good book, the Bible says, when that king was now out, when he died, some people found themselves in the book of Isaiah. So definitely there are people who have been in the shadow. And we cannot deny, although there are many people in the Luo nation where we come from who have just said, let's just elect ODM for purposes of Baba. That one has happened many times. But it is not like it is only in Luoland. Tell me today who was elected on any other ticket in Rift Valley who was not in UDA. Everybody was... No, I'm just comparing because when you want to say this is wrong, compared to what?
You get another wrong.
Yeah, no. Compared to what, which is right.